Hey everybody, what is up? This is Gabriel Cardona. Welcome to the Subnet podcast. I'm joined today by the amazing Connor Daly. What's up, Connor?
Hey Gabriel, how's it going? I'm so
It's,
excited to be here.
Thank you very much. Connor is one of the amazing engineers from Ava Labs. His first claim to fame that I know of is he's the creator of Pangolin, which is probably the largest automated market maker on the Avalanche network. But he's got other claims to fame because he and I have recently been working on a very exciting project, and then there's just so much other stuff going on. So I wanted to bring him on and just talk to him about his past, his crypto history, his crypto vision, and then just hit him with some other crypto questions. So welcome, Connor. We were chatting before this, and we were talking about basically how he got to Ava Labs and how he ended up at Cornell and connected with Gun. So let's start back there again. How did you end up at Cornell?
Yeah, so my dad was in the Navy for a number of years, and then kind of got out of the service, and then ended up working for the Army as a civilian employee. And so I moved around a lot my whole life, and I was from New Orleans originally, but I moved around a few different places, and ended up going to high school in Heidelberg, Germany. And when I was in high school, I was really kind of learned that I was really into like math and science, and was kind of going down the technology track. I started programming in 8th grade. My first programming experience was actually an action script, building Flash games, which was really cool. I made one called the Adventures of Galgatron. And so the first stuff I was doing was, I
Somebody
programming this
please
Flash
make
game.
an NFT called The Adventures of Galgatron, please. I need to see a pixel art NFT of this, like ASAP.
Be careful though. I need royalties if you do that.
It's true. It's true.
I still have it on like a USB drive somewhere. But yeah, basically it was like this alien Galgatron was captured by humans and being experimented on. And so they were making him do tests. And so the first game we made was like a rock, paper, scissors. It was just like a random thing. But basically, it's like on click event for the rock object. We select the rock thing, we feed it in, we get a random number output, we see if we do the rock, paper, scissors, and then you have to win like 3 out of 5 or something like that.
So I just got to crack that action script random number generator and I can own that game.
Exactly. Then you can win every time.
There's no oracles yet for random number generators for rock, paper, scissors.
Surprisingly, this was Macromedia Flash back then. It wasn't even Adobe Flash. And so I think the corporate overlords at Adobe have just gotten, they left Flash by the wayside.
We did. We were talking about that previously. We blamed it on Steve Jobs and the iPhone.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, I think Flash games used to be so huge, and I loved them. Yeah, so we did rock, paper, scissors. Then I did a brick breaker one, which was like really hard for an 8th grader because I didn't know trigonometry. And if you want to make the paddle, like there's a thing in like a good implementation of brick breaker where if you hit the ball off different parts of the paddle, it'll go in different directions. Sure. Instead of just inverting the like X and Y axis. Like if you hit it off the end of the paddle, it'll bounce a different direction. Right. You had to know you have to use trigonometry to figure out exactly like the angles at which to send it off. But I didn't know trig because I hadn't even I was in algebra 1. My teacher for that semester also like had to leave. One of the other teachers quit and he got pulled over from tech to math. And so I like basically had to teach myself out of a book that whole class, but we did make it work. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, Breakout is like famously the very first game that Jobs and Wozniak did for Atari, right? That was their very first project, and if they got it done in a short amount of time, they got extra money, and that was the money that Jobs went to India with. And later, somebody interviewed Wozniak, and they were like, "Hey, I heard you guys got $5,000 for that game at Atari," and he was like, "What? Steve paid me $500."
Yeah, no. So that was my first programming experience. Then, kind of in high school, I was able to start reading some, expand my interest, doing well in all my classes, taking AP classes. But I read some books on theoretical physics, which just like blew my mind. Like Brian Greene, Fabric of the Cosmos. That was just like total mind explosion. And then there were a couple Nova documentaries about that I watched that were also just like total mind blowing. I'm like, this is not what they teach us in school. This is so cool. Like you telling me that there's multiverses, there's this string theory thing, there's quantum mechanics, there's wave particle duality, there's like all this, the double slit experiment. Like if you look at the experiment, you get different results than if you don't look at the experiment. It's just totally, 15-year-old me, just like mind blown, like all the time. I'm like, this has to be what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very much on like the academic track of like, all right, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to grad school, and I'm going to get my PhD, and then I'm going to go be a professor, and I'm going to be a professor of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the path. And so I was kind of like trying to go to the best college that I could go to. Now I was on a military base at the time, so we didn't really have like a geographic hub where like everybody went to school to, because everybody was just from like different places. So everybody kind of went to just wherever they were from originally. It wasn't like, if you're at a Louisiana high school, like, 70% of the kids that go to college, probably like 80% of them go to LSU.
Sure.
So I was just trying to go to the best school I could go to. And, I was lucky enough that I was able to get into Cornell, and, didn't quite make it to Harvard, only got on the wait list, but I was really proud of that at the time. That was something I worked really hard for.
Sure. So you started out with physics then, not computer science.
Yep. So I started out in physics, and I was, like I said, I was on the academic path. So I actually did 2 years of research in physics, and I worked I started out in an accelerator physics lab, and I met a guy who I really liked, but probably one of my favorite people I've ever worked with, who was a really great mentor to me. And he took me into his lab. And so I was doing work on, accelerator physics is when it's actually like building particle accelerators themselves, not analyzing the results. So like trying to build things like the Large Hadron Collider and the individual components. And so these things are like, they operate at like superconducting temperature. And so I was looking at like how to improve the efficiency of the materials, and like if there actually was a difference in efficiency if you cooled them down quickly or slowly to the superconducting temperature.
Wow. And
so we were looking at like these thermoelectric currents at titanium niobium junctions at like 4 Kelvin with superfluid helium and all kinds of cool stuff. And so that was actually doing hardware stuff, like real experiments. That was, a really great experience. I actually got a physics publication out of it, which was pretty cool. And I really enjoyed that experience.
How big was the team?
The whole department was like very small. Accelerator physics is a very underpopulated field.
Sure.
Everybody who likes this kind of thing goes into the particle physics side, which is like analyzing the experimental results. That is a way too overcrowded field. If you go into there, like you will not get a job because like there are just not enough positions. But if you go into accelerator physics, you are like guaranteed to get a job at one of like 5 universities because there are just no graduates. And so there was probably like 5 faculty members working in this field, and then a bunch of support staff.
Okay.
But like only one of these two, like only a couple of the people actually taught. Most of them were just actually like visiting researchers.
Got it. And this was hardware though. This was no software at all. Were you writing any code at all?
There was a little bit of analysis code. The first experiment I actually tried was a data analysis thing, trying to do like Fourier transforms, trying to look for signals in a pattern that didn't go anywhere. The next project, was actually like very physical, but we had, they're called like cryo modules. We had like things that we were submerging and dropping down to 4 Kelvin and stuff like that. It was very, very little programming.
It seems like we were saying earlier, hardware is hard. It just seems like there would be so many different moving pieces and so many interface points between a project like that it seems like there would be a lot of places things could go wrong, or you could get misreadings or bad data or something. That seems like a lot of moving pieces to me.
Yeah, what was really hard was actually capturing the data, because the actual experimental apparatus with our like sensors and stuff is like inside the container that's operating at like 4 Kelvin. At like, so actually like the hardest part was the interface between the doer to get like to the normal temperature, to the sub-zero, to the super cold temperature. And we had to have these junctions. And it's called a feed through, and it used to break all the time. And there were these little tiny cables that had to be soldered into these pins. And they were just so fragile because they kept getting shocked by being dropped down to 4 Kelvin, back up to room temperature, 4 Kelvin, room temperature. And that just puts a lot of stress on the material. And these are like tiny little wires. And they used to like, just like tear all the time. And I had to resolder them so many times. And I was like, they were really difficult solders because they were just like really small. And I was not very good at it. So that was the hardest part.
How often does stuff get shut down because you don't have the gear to fix it? Like how often do you run out of the soldering wire or whatever, where, you know, whatever the random thing is, where it's like, we're shutting down today, we don't have any more tape or something like that? Is it common, or do you just have a huge university budget and you've got stocks and stocks and stocks of everything you need?
We as an undergrad, I would say we had stocks and stocks of everything, but I like didn't, I was not like the most using like super everything. Like I was not like the most useful employee or whatever. I had like my small subset stuff that I worked on, but I can't say about everything super generally.
Got it. So how did you start sort of transitioning from there to ultimately doing computer science?
Yeah, so I worked in a different lab the next year, and I was working on the data acquisition system. This was actually a particle physics lab, so analyzing the results of a experiment. It was an experiment called the muon G-2, which was looking to disprove the current standard model of physics and show that it had shortcomings and that there were more physics to be discovered. And so this was a collaboration with like tens of universities, and we were working on a very small piece of it. And so I was working on this data acquisition system. So we were trying to like do computer simulations because we didn't have the data collection. So we were trying to do like computer data simulations to like show that like we could trigger and capture the data like we expected. Because whenever you do a particle physics experiment, there's like millions of events per second.
Sure.
So you have to be very quick about like, and very precise about how you read data. You can't just capture it like all the time or whatever. It's like too fine grained. And so I spent the summer working on like, it was mostly like kind of Linuxy stuff, trying to do like some certain like hardware modules for some custom ports and things like that. And I really liked it actually. And I realized at the end of the summer that I hadn't done any physics and I didn't really care. The parts of my job that I really liked were the computer science parts. And there was also a postdoc in the lab who had just gotten his particle physics degree, which was like what I was thinking about doing. And he went to go work for Seagate to do software stuff for them. So I kind of like had this realization that, wow, there's no jobs in this field. If I go through and get my PhD, I'm going to just end up working for Facebook or like doing software, but I'm not going to really have my choice of software jobs. I'm going to get to do the software jobs that physics people are good at doing. But if I get a CS degree, I could do whatever software job I want. Because if I'm going to end up there regardless, might as well like carve my own path rather than having to backdoor my way in. And so I was very much on the academic path still. And I was like, you know what, like I'm a person who like does research every semester. So let me see if I can find a new research project. And so I was really interested in cybersecurity. And so, cause you know, hacking is cool. So
definitely.
And I was like, how can I learn to do hacking? And like, they don't actually teach you very much at Cornell about that. But I was looking at different research opportunities, different professors, and I landed on one professor, Emin Gün Sirer, and he was my number one choice to work with. He had done some cool work on operating systems that I thought was really interesting. I was interested in cybersecurity and I was interested in traditional systems. So, you know, operating systems, compilers, all the stuff that makes our infrastructure run.
And did somebody connect you guys or did you just like rush them?
No, I just walked in cold. You know, I didn't send him an email. I just kind of dropped by his office one day. He had his door open. I walked in and I said, hi. And he's like, hello. And and I said, do you have a minute? And he's like, I might. And
that's some good mannerisms out there. That was good. That's convincing.
And I was like, so hey, I'm an undergrad. I'm looking for I used to be a physics major, but I switched over to switching over to computer science. I'm looking for a research project to join. Do you have any spaces, or would you be interested in working with me? To which he said, have you taken my class? To which I said, no. And then he just promptly said, sorry, come back after you've taken my class. Goodbye.
Mm.
And so I was like, you know what? He did have it on his website. Like, there's a section on his website. If you want to work with me, you have to have taken my class and you had to make an A. Then come talk to me. But I was just like, I'll try my luck. So I started to walk out the door, and he was just like, hold on a second. Why did you come here? And so if any of our listeners are still in college, I'm going to provide you a little alpha leak here. This is a tip that I did not think about at the time, but in hindsight, I think this is actually a really good idea. And I would highly recommend this to anybody who is trying to get a research position in college, or just you want to work with somebody. Read their paper. Like, that's like honestly the best thing you can do. Like, figure out what they're actually working on, find the most recent thing that they've done, because they're still working on that. Or just something that's like relatively recent that you think is really interesting. And so that's what I did. So I read his paper, and I picked out a specific diagram in the paper to like prove that I had actually read it and not like just read the title or the abstract. Like, I had a specific question about like a specific picture. And it was the Nexus operating system. And I just said, I was just reading your paper, and I was like looking for a research project. And I just thought it was so cool how you could use these operating system primitives to show that this picture was photoshopped and there weren't actually missiles in it. And it was just tanks driving normally without the missiles being shot. And I think stuff like that is so cool. And then he was just like, maybe I have a project for you.
Nice. Well, that was a pretty auspicious meeting, man. What if his door wouldn't have been open?
No, yeah, seriously. This is a butterfly effect. I would certainly probably wouldn't be working here. I might not even know what crypto is. Who knows?
Sure. And then, so what was his first project? What did he on-ramp you into?
Yeah, so he's like, do you know what Bitcoin is? And I said no.
Right out of the gate, huh? What year was this?
This is 2014.
Okay. So wow, in 2014, he asked you, do you know what Bitcoin is? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my first introduction into Bitcoin was building on Bitcoin. Wow. Like I did not come from an ideological standpoint at all. It was very much like, I've got a research project on Bitcoin. Can you is this something you can handle? Like, read the white paper and come back and talk to me like next week. So I did. And the project we worked on together was something called Virtual Notary.
Before we get there, let's dig into the white paper a little bit, because that's such a big document. What did you think? Did you get it? Was it over your head? I suspect not. You're a very smart dude. You know math as well.
I didn't understand the proof of work part.
Yeah.
The math behind the proof of work eluded me at the time.
Sure.
I haven't gone back and reread it, so maybe it still eludes me. Who knows?
Did you appreciate that it was a significant document when you read it, or were you just kind of like, this is?
Oh yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Like the whole idea of being able to solve the currency problem without a trusted third party, and just having this ledger. Like, it made a lot of intuitive sense of like, oh yeah, if I just know that Gabriel transferred me money and I transferred somebody else money, then I know that you don't have any more money to send to me. Like, that part made like super clear sense.
Sure.
And so I thought that was really cool. And I didn't necessarily have any super like ideological takes on the time of like government is screwed.
Did you so I'm trying to think of the timeline. So 2014 would have been before the Ethereum white paper or yellow paper. So there had already been at least one Bitcoin spike by then. Was there buzz around, probably not Gun because he's very technical, but was there buzz around the price of the token, or was that not something?
So it was around $600 when I started started working. And I was just like, I started doing this work, and I was like, maybe I should buy some. And then like a month or two later, it crashed to like 200. And I was like, oh my God, thank God I didn't buy.
Sure. Yeah. I have a good friend who inherited a significant amount of money and invested it all into Bitcoin when Bitcoin was around $800, and then it crashed to 500, and he sold it all in a panic. And so of course he lost like a third of his inheritance. And then today he hates life basically. Every time I see him, he's like, let's just don't talk about it at all.
Yeah. Gabriel, as far as I'm concerned, you're an accountant.
Yeah, exactly. So then what was your first project? If you were building on Bitcoin, what were you actually doing?
So I was working on something called Virtual Notary, which was one of, if not the first attestation platforms on blockchain.
Sure.
So we were basically hacking the Bitcoin blockchain to use it to store data so that we could do proof of attestation. So virtual notary, basically the idea was we can capture factoids from the internet that from our perspective, we see, like a tweet, ownership of an email address, a random number, website contents, something like that. And so our whole pitch was, let's say Gabriel gets on Twitter and says, Das Connor sucks. He's the worst developer ever. And I am like, this is slander. This is libel. I'm not the worst developer ever. So I take a screenshot of your tweet. You then delete the tweet. So now I'm suing you. We go to court. I present my screenshot of your tweet as evidence. And you say, I never tweeted that. You just photoshopped it. That's a reasonable defense, right? You have, without digging into like going to Twitter, getting them to dump their archives and like tell us. I don't really have any counter argument against that because screenshots are not in any way secure. I very easily could have photoshopped it. What Virtual Notary does is it would take a screen, it would download the tweet from Twitter and attest that from my perspective, I see this tweet on Twitter at this time, and it would make a cryptographic certificate saying this. It would have the contents of the tweet in it. It would take the hash of that, and it would publish that hash on the blockchain.
Got it. Okay. Was it?
And it would also,
No, I'm interested.
It would also have like rolling hashes so that it would track like its whole contents of everything it verified.
Do you remember like how you were doing it? Were you writing it to the op return? I think that's the only place you can store arbitrary data.
We were the first people. I think we were some of the first people using op return for this.
That's amazing, man. Yeah. So that was my question: is if you were going to do a hash. So we even have a simple timestamp VM now. As like our canonical kind of example VM that does exactly that, right? It's like a proof of attestation VM. You can basically take like a hash of a document and write it to a block, and it'll have a timestamp, and it's like ordered as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That was super early. So that was like one of the first ideas. Was that your idea or was that Gun's idea? Whose idea was it?
It was Gun's idea. So I did a lot of the implementation, like taking it into like adding the op return stuff, like actually interacting with the chain, writing raw transactions. Because I mean, coming into it, I didn't know anything about crypto. I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. I mean, crypto was Bitcoin at that time. There was like Litecoin, maybe even Doge was around, but like
yeah, Namecoin was around. I think Namecoin was like the first DNS type thing. By the way, just a side question: is it weird for you to call him Gun? Do you still think of him as Professor Sarir, or are you guys?
No, everyone called him Gun back then too. So
okay. Got it. Yeah. Cool. So then that was 2014. So walk me into the Ethereum experience being where you were at. You were at like the center of the universe really at that time. How did that all
So this was, I had some cool experiences being around at that time. I'm not sure if he had really anybody else working on crypto projects as like an undergrad or anything, but
so was it just you and him, or were you on a team with a couple other people?
No, it was just me and him.
Wow, man, that's amazing. You got introduced to Bitcoin in 2014 by Gun to do the first attestation project. That is pretty rad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't even working with like grad students really. I mean, there was a few other people in the lab, but they were working on more like regular systems projects. Like they were working on some different database technologies and things like that. So like I was really like the only person working on crypto that I know of. I could be wrong on that. Sorry if I'm forgetting somebody.
So before we even go to Ethereum then, did you have thoughts on the scaling debate? Because surely the scaling debate was already starting to formulate at that time.
Yeah. So there actually, there were grad students working on this because yes, our lab was also working on a Bitcoin simulator to look at the effects of what different block sizes had on like the network throughput and things like that.
Got it.
And so I was very much on the side of like, we need to like do the science and not just have ideological debates.
Sure.
And like we have people like, because this was after selfish mining had come out.
Mhm.
And the Bitcoin community, the Bitcoin core had actually hired professional trolls to like go after Goon and discredit him.
Sure.
And I think that I just was very much on the side of, there's like a lot of wacko ideologues out there who are just trying to push an agenda
Mhm.
and are like doing some really dirty stuff to do so. And I think
Sure.
that's a really poor approach to system design. And that, big blocks, small blocks, the best way to find out is to like see what happens and like see like what will actually increase network throughput, what will actually help us build a scalable network.
Right.
So that was very much my thinking at the
You were a
time.
pragmatic scientist at the time. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I felt the same way, right? I was in the community at the time as well. I wasn't at Cornell, but I was doing my thing. And I was also just like, there's solutions to this. It's just the engineering. And so that's why I started to focus on Ethereum way early. The first time I read the yellow paper, I got it immediately because I was a fan of Vitalik, who was already writing for Bitcoin Magazine and had already done some colored coins and some different type of token things on BTC. So I already knew who he was at a distance, and I was a big fan. So I remember the first time I saw the yellow paper and being like, wow, you know what I mean? It was a mind blower to me. So walk me into that. As how did you experience that evolution from Bitcoin into Ethereum?
So I think my first knowledge of Ethereum actually came through like a Wired article that was like a preview of like Ethereum before it launched. And I was just like, okay, I don't quite understand it. Like,
were you
I
not
don't
into
understand.
tokens? Did you not dig tokens, or were you just doing the payment stuff, or did you like Bitcoin tokens like Omni and Mastercoin and all this different
I
stuff?
didn't know anything about them.
Got it.
I was pretty much in my own world. Like, I didn't necessarily go down the huge rabbit hole of like being on all the forums and stuff.
Right.
So like I knew some of the other people there. We had some copycats that popped up after us for like some of our stuff, but I did not just dive deep into the community. I was very much like focused on my project.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I first learned about Ethereum, but like before it came out, there was like a Wired article talking about like it's going to add all these like normal programming languages on top of a blockchain. So you're going to be able to have like run programs. And I'm like, this makes no sense. How do you run a programming language on a blockchain? This like it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so then I remember I was having lunch with Goon and a few of the grad students at the time, and I just remember being like, so I read this article about this Ethereum thing. Like, do you guys like know what it is, or like, is this gonna be like important or whatever? And they're like, maybe. Like, I don't do it.
Really? So they weren't immediately sold on it either. It wasn't an obvious.
I mean, it wasn't like, oh no, like you need to know what this is. Like, this is gonna be a thing. Like, no, it was very much like, that's the thing that's coming. Like, we're like, we're keeping an eye on it, but like, no, not super like, oh my God, like, how have you haven't heard about it? Yeah, nothing like that.
One vibe I remember being, so at the time I hung out a lot on IRC. I was a big fan of IRC when I was a kid. I grew up in high school. I spent a ton of time on IRC. So when I started programming, I remember thinking, there must surely be IRC channels for programming, right? Like I was like going through the Google. Yeah, right. And so
are there IRC channels for anything else?
Yeah, exactly. So I discovered Freenode, right? And Freenode's, if there's an open source project, it's got a room on Freenode. And so I was hanging out in a room called Bitcoin Assets, who was actually created by Mircea Popescu, who recently passed away. He is like a famous old OG Bitcoiner who drowned recently. That was his chat room. People think of him as a notorious troll, but I'm the kind of person who like, I will put aside a person. I don't care about identity. I care about merit, right? And so I learned a lot from this guy. So independent if he said some stuff that I don't agree with or would never say out of my own mouth, man, he was a good computer scientist. And he taught me all about the web of trust. And so for years, I've been waiting for that web of trust model to be applied to social media, because today Sybil attacks are very cheap. Social Sybil attacks are cheap because you can just spin up a bunch of Twitter accounts, AI generates some pictures, AI generates some chat bots, and you can drive the entire conversation. That would change if your identity had value through a social, through like a web of trust thing, right? So like, it wouldn't be as easy for me to just throw away my identity and create another one, because all these people have given me some type of trust rating. But anyway, long story short, I was in Bitcoin Assets at the time. I had Bitcoin. And these guys were just such haters of Vitalik, man. They clowned on this dude all day long. Like, are you really going to give up Bitcoin to get Ethereum? Really? That's what you're going to do? So you're going to go give Vitalik. So keep in mind, he's asking you for Bitcoin, right? He'll give you some Ethereum, sure. They'll give you Ethereum at the crowd sale. What do they want for it? They want your Bitcoin. are you really going to give your Bitcoin? You know, like they dogged it so hard for sure. So that was the vibe, and sort of like down the Bitcoin rabbit hole was like, really, you're going to give this guy your Bitcoin for this other thing he's launching? I don't think a lot of people, you know, it's the social dialogue, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
anyway, back to your story. So the first time you heard about it, you said you were at lunch. I'm sorry, what was it?
Yeah, I read a Wired article, and then I just remember talking about it with Goon and a few grad students at
Okay.
lunch.
Okay.
But then, yeah, I was in a very like lucky position because Goon was very much, you know, the crypto professor at the time, and we were able to get some good talks that came through. One, I remember I got to Peter Todd came in and gave a talk, which was actually a terrible talk now that I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting
Supposedly
dude.
he had like just been in the hospital the day before, but I was just like, I think that was one of the worst talks I've ever seen. I was just like, man, afterwards I was talking to him, I was like, I think I could have given a better talk than that.
Boring or not informative or what?
I'm trying to remember. It was just like nonsensical of just
Hmm.
like, is that guy like on drugs? I think they said literally he was in the hospital yesterday and like wasn't going to come, but then came anyway, but like should have still been in the hospital.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, there was just kind of like a tour of people coming through. So I got to meet some cool people. And one of them was actually the week before Ethereum launched. Vitalik came by, and
Nice.
Goon was like, "You should like meet this guy. Like, you know, tell him about your research. I'll set up a one. Like, the one thing they would do is when a visiting researcher would come by, they'd like set up appointments, and you could like talk to them with like a one-on-one. So I had a one-on-one with Vitalik,
Mhm.
like literally the week before Ethereum launched, and I gave him a demo of my site, and he gave me a demo of smart contracts. And I think the demo he gave me was written in Serpent, which is a dead language.
Right.
The Ethereum, they originally bit off way more than they can chew. They were like,
Sure.
we're writing like 3 clients in 3 different languages, and we have like 5 smart contract languages. There's going to be a JavaScript one, like a Python equivalent one, a
Mhm.
C++ equivalent one, whatever.
Mhm.
And we got 1 client, and we got one one
Sure.
smart contract. Like maybe they got 2 clients. I don't remember if I think they also might have gotten a C++ one.
So
Guessing
what was
crazy.
your just your blink impression of Vitalik? Like your very first gut instinct. What did you think about him when you met him?
You know, he's very smart. He's definitely like was showing me stuff that I didn't comprehend at the time.
Sure.
He's definitely like, especially at the time, I haven't seen him in person and since then.
Mhm.
Like he's not the most like socially graceful person you'll ever meet, but you could
Mhm.
tell he's just like very smart. And I mean, his birthday is days away from mine, like same year and stuff.
Mhm.
And I mean, I was like also just kind of blown away because I'm like, this guy is like exactly the same age as me,
Sure.
and uh, you know, very sharp.
Did
He
he
gave
have
a
like, go ahead.
I was gonna say he gave a talk to the whole department on like Merkle trees or something,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and that talk also went over my head at the time.
Did he have like, did he have like an ego? Were you able to connect with him? Like, were you guys like, did you get along with him, or was it hard to get in there, or how was that? How was the actual personal
Oh,
dynamics?
we weren't like buds or anything. I don't know. We did.
Sure.
I was very nervous meeting him too, because I mean, not that he has way more reputation now than he did then. Like, I mean, I
But
remember
you
him
knew who
like,
he
oh,
was then. So you knew who he was. It wasn't just
yeah,
like
I
Goon
knew
was
who he
like,
was and what he was doing,
okay.
but like Ethereum was like, I mean, hell, it sold for like $1 for like
Yeah.
years or whatever. But like, you know, it was not an instant sensation. They had a lot of troubles,
Sure.
but I don't know. I was like, yeah, you know, hey, it's like nice to meet you, but I don't know. I don't think we really like super connected. But like, I mean, I think I think he's a cool guy. I'd love to meet him again.
Got it.
But
Yeah. And now that you're like one of the best contract programmers that I personally know, and
you don't know
definitely,
very many.
no, you're right. No, I'm wondering, like, what are your feelings on that? Like, how do you feel that played out? Do you wish you could play that out different? Do you appreciate that that's kind of the way life goes? Like, what are your thoughts on having met Vitalik a week before it? And, you know, because you're
I
so
wish I would have
good.
bought some ether, man.
Well, I don't even mean that. I mean, do you wish you would have joined him? Because you're good enough where you could have joined him. Like, I really hold you very high esteem with your computer science skills. You're the legit. So do you kind of be like, damn, I should have joined the Ethereum then? Or do you just like, that's that's the way the game's played. That's the way it plays out.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about that of like what uh the path my life has taken and like why it has gone the way it has. And so much of it is just because of like the systems around me. And I mean, when I was looking for my first job out of college, it was very much like, I don't think I was ready for a high risk, high reward kind of position that could disappear in a few months.
Yeah, that's actually a very insightful thing to be able to know about yourself, man. There it is. That's why you didn't do it. You just weren't there, and you weren't there personally.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I didn't have any money personally. I mean, my parents are like definitely not the, you know, worst off people in the world, and they could have protected me if anything went like really wrong.
Sure.
But I never felt entitled to that.
Sure.
Like I never thought that like going home was an option if I like, and so I was looking for, I think, more security at the time.
Sure.
And so, but also just like, it didn't really occur to me to look for jobs outside the career fair, kind of.
Sure.
Because I guess Cornell is very much like a Valley feeder school.
Right.
And almost everybody I know goes to either, you know, Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, or Wall Street.
Sure.
Everyone goes to a big company. A few people went to like some high profile startups or whatever, or that are like just acquired startups by like Cisco, or so like things that aren't really startups, but like are big enough to get the pay to play to get into like Cornell Career Fair. So, you know, and also just like crypto was not was very much not at a point where I could point to a single company and think that they would be around in 2 years.
Got it. Yeah, I understand totally. Yeah, I was similar, right? I found out about Bitcoin in 2011, but I had a 1-year-old son, and I definitely was just not at the place. Like I pivoted to working at Truly in 2012 and left the Bitcoin ecosystem simply because I had a kid and I had bills, right? So I totally understand. Like, it's just about being where you are in your life and things lining up properly, right? So I know so many people, everybody has the same crypto story. It's a universal story. Man, I should have bought more then. It's one thing that's universal to everyone, right? Everybody knew about Bitcoin 4 years ago. Damn, I should have bought more, right? So it's like some people dwell on it so much that they end up hating crypto and hating every person who's been successful. Like when I was at Bitcoin and I worked very closely with Roger Ver, I was convinced that half of the people who hated him simply because he followed his intuition and got into Bitcoin, and they did not. And so instead of just saying there's other opportunities, you know what, I missed Bitcoin and I missed Ethereum, but I'm not going to miss the next one. Right. That's the mindset you got to have. There's always a new opportunity, right? Like, come on, is this the end of all opportunities? No, there's more opportunity every single day. But some people are just not able to get over on that missed opportunity. Like, damn, dude, I could have been a billionaire. All I had to do was invest 15 grand and I could have been, I'll never be able to uninfatuate about that. Like it dug into me for a long time. And eventually I just had to say, it's okay. You've got to move on with your life. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And one of my coworkers at my last job was very much the like, my neighbors, their son was like building a startup in their garage. You know who their son was? Sergey Brin. yeah. Right. They were like, you know, just like, man, I mined Bitcoin for years and then just like wasn't worth anything. So I like just threw it away.
Yeah, that's like, actually that's the canonical example I've been giving. Actually, that's so funny you say that, because I only know the guys who's through social media. I don't think we ever met in person, but sort of like the example I've been giving is that guy James Housley, the guy from Great Britain who threw away the hard drive with the like 300 million bucks in Bitcoin. So you know he threw so supposedly this dude mined like, I don't know, 4,000 5,000 BC. I don't know even how much is worth that today, but like supposedly it's worth $250 million today. And he threw away his hard drive and didn't back it up. It's an innocent enough mistake, man. I definitely have thrown away a hard drive with BTC on it for sure, or it crashed and I didn't have backup. So it happens, you know, for sure. And so now, like, he's gone to the city council multiple times. Like, I remember one time he literally, it showed his wife's belly, right? This is the shot, picture this shot. A belly of a pregnant woman is in the forefront. And in the background, you see the trash heap, like, so I guess the hospital's next to the dump or something. And so literally while the dude's at the hospital with his wife, he was like literally like in the distance, it's still there, right? And so what he keeps doing is he's going to the city council, and now he's got a new plan saying, hey, I've got backers and we want to do deep scanning of the ground and use AI. We know exactly, we figured out exactly within so many feet where it should be. And I'm thinking, why would they even cut you in on that? If the city's going to do that, they'll just do it themselves and not give you any money.
And then he
Right?
finds the hard drive and it's cracked.
Or he doesn't have the password, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway, so, okay. So you found out about Ethereum literally the week before. So then walk me forward, like what happened in between Ethereum and how did you ultimately find your way to Ava Labs? Like, what does that chapter look like?
Yeah. So like I said, I was looking for a more stable job, but I was really interested in working in like cybersecurity. So that's where I was focused. I was really torn between like grad school and a job. And so I kind of found a good medium where I went to work at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, which is like kind of a government contractor wing of Johns Hopkins University. And so we did a lot of defense contracting, stuff like that. But I actually got to do like real cybersecurity work, working with the government on various projects, mostly in the on-class world.
Got it. So this is where I always have an ongoing joke with Connor that he is a part of the Men in Black, and that I always ask him not to flash my memory again. So if you hear me say, please don't flash my memory again, Connor.
If the podcast cuts right here.
Yeah, this is where the joke emerges from. So there you go. Got it.
Yeah, so I did defensive cybersecurity research. That was my specialization. So I just have a bachelor's degree, or I had a bachelor's degree at the time. And so this was kind of an opportunity where I could go like work on my master's part-time and do like real research as an undergrad, because I was kind of frustrated with the academic system of just like, I could do this research stuff. I don't need a PhD. It's like not that hard.
Got it.
I can like, I just want to just do the work. I don't want to have to deal with the shittiness that is grad school, where they just take advantage of you for 6 years while I watch my peers get filthy rich at Facebook.
Right. Yeah. So then how did you ultimately start writing smart contracts? Because when you came to Ava Labs, the first time I ever met you, you were like the new head of our Dapps team or whatever. So you must have already had some pretty good skills. So how did that play out?
So funny thing. So I joined this company in 2016, 7,000 person company. We have a skills tracker, or we had a skills tracker where basically you could enter your skills. So if somebody's like, I need a machine learning person, you could search machine learning, list of people would pop up who had that skill. And then you could like email them, say like, hey, you want to join my project? So I listed, so I'm a new hire. I'm like, well, I got to write down my skills. What are my skills? Well, I know Bitcoin and I know blockchain. I was the only person out of 7,000 people who listed that as a skill.
Wow.
So now this was like fall 2016. We're now starting to get into 2017. You know what happened in 2017?
Oh, I was there,
Crypto
my friend.
went crazy.
I remember it well.
Yeah. And so everyone at the lab is like, I got an idea for a Bitcoin project or a blockchain project. And so I need somebody who knows blockchains. They go on the skill tracker. Guess who they find? One result.
Wow.
So as you know, I wasn't 18, as a 22-year-old, like, fresh out of college, I was the subject matter expert at the lab for all blockchain related tasks. Nice. And so where I worked, we had a lot of ability to apply for grants to do projects that were self-funded basically. And like mostly small things you could spend like a few days, a few weeks, a few months on. And so I did some innovation grants for Bitcoin, and some were like self-funded. Other ones were like the department coming to us and being like, hey, we've got this idea for a Bitcoin project or a blockchain project. You want to do it? And so the first thing that I did was I worked on it. I submitted a proposal with a guy. We were working on a DNS blockchain implementation. And so kind of similar to Namecoin, not super similar to ENS, because we were actually trying to replace DNS. ENS actually had not come out yet. There was like a paper about ENS or something like that, but it was not done. And so like what we did is we were doing what our innovation was is we wanted something that would work with like actual DNS. So we basically made a server that would just register domains to like via your DApp. It would register domains and it would check like, is this domain registered in the blockchain? If yes, return the the IP address or whatever that was corresponding to it. And if not, then like fall back to like google.com or Google's DNS or whatever. So It actually was like, so we set up like a real DNS server that would like, you could register like A records to or whatever, and would like spit you back like the regular queries. But it actually would like pull from the blockchain. So we built this, we
Was
called
it Ethereum or this is different? You said it's like name.
No, it was Ethereum. It was Ethereum.
Okay.
So that was my first time writing like Solidity smart contracts.
Got it.
Back in version like 4.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so I've built applications. I've built dApps on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Avalanche now. And so that was my first foray into Ethereum. We kind of struggled from like the classic enterprise blockchain thing of like, you build your blockchain app and then this company's like, well, we don't really know what to do with this.
Sure.
Or like, we can't, like, our problem is we couldn't figure out how to actually buy ETH. Like, we just like, as an organization, like we couldn't do it
Mm-hmm.
because we were like too close to the government, and just like, we had to like pay people to like do stuff for us. It was a mess. Then like the Homeland Protection Department, they like really wanted to like crack down on Bitcoin and stop criminals.
Sure.
So there were some other projects that they were kind of like looking into, trying to bring the feds in, that weren't really super successful. But then we did some more stuff with Ethereum testnets. I also did a big Ethereum like supply chain project, looking at how to manage supply chain, how you can manage supply chain on the blockchain.
Which is going to be huge, of course. Absolutely freaking huge with supply chain. Yeah. So then,
if you ever need it, I developed a protocol how to do it. I think it works really well.
Yeah, I do. I know somebody who was brainstorming on definitely launching on something on Avalanche. So then how did you come to the notice of Ava Labs? Through Goon, or what exactly, how'd that go down?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been keeping up with Goon's work, and I knew, I saw when he released the Avalanche white paper with Team Rocket or whatever, and I was like, oh, cool, he has a new paper. I should read this.
Which I've never, for what it's worth, like I've never really got to the heart of why that was released in a pseudonymous fashion, even though there are people's real names on the white paper. I've never understood the logic behind that. I don't know if you have any insight there, but I don't understand why Team Rocket why wasn't it just like Kevin Goon and whoever? What was the
story? The story that I have been told is that Team Rocket were the people who helped solve the correctness proof.
Oh, okay.
So that the research lab with like Robert Van Renesse and like Kevin Goon and Ted and all these people, they were working with the algorithm in simulation, but they were trying to come up with a formal correctness proof to prove that it has the properties that it has. Okay. And that Team Rocket was an anonymous party who reached out and helped them with the correctness proof.
Okay, fair enough. Gotcha. Okay.
So the paper came out. I didn't read it because I was busy. I had a girlfriend. Had to play some video games. Fast forward 2 years.
Right.
And I'm like, it's quarantine. Like, I liked my job, but I kind of reached the point where like I am really appreciative for like all the time I had there. I learned a ton, but I think I kind of like reached a point where I wasn't really learning a lot anymore. I had finished my master's degree, which is in data science, because I was going to go work in sports.
So you did get a master's degree?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Waste of time. Wouldn't do that again. Maybe valuable for some people. It also depends like on the circumstance. And I would just say, like, for me, if I would have stayed at my old job, it would have been more valuable. It would have like bumped me up on the pay scale and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like where I am now, it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
But also, means different things to different people. But
and like, I don't have a degree. I'm totally self-taught, but the way I perceive it is, it's like the best education in the world is online if you're driven enough to get it. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about academia, at least as I perceive it from outside, is that it shows you can stick to something and accomplish it. That is one great thing. Like, you can get the shit done, and then you meet people like you met Goon, right? So it's like
it's a forcing function too, of like, very few people like have the willpower to resist Netflix for long periods of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like, it can get you, and like, honestly, I would say it's also a lot more valuable if you didn't go to a super rigorous school, or you're changing fields slightly. So, I mean, I just have the benefit. I was able to go to like a really strong undergraduate program that like really prepared me for a lot of this stuff. And just talking to some of my colleagues, like I worked through a lot harder assignments And I just covered a lot more ground in my undergrad than they did. And so I think some of them got a little bit more out of the masters for like the same program. But also I would say the masters that I did was very much you get out what you put in, and I did not put in very much.
Sure. So then did you reach out to Ava Labs, or did somebody reach out to you?
I reached out to Ava Labs. So so the fast forward 2 years, I was kind of like, my plan was like, I would like to change jobs within the next 3 years. You know, I was like, not like looking for like, I have to move now, but, you know, I saw that mainnet launch was coming up soon, and that they were like actually throwing a date on it. And I was just like, you know, I should catch up on this white paper. And so I read the white paper, and like my jaw was on the floor. Because I was just like, oh my God, they did it.
Nice.
Like all of the problems that Bitcoin and Ethereum are like struggling with, this solves, like by like with an order of magnitude to spare. Like, and I was just like, there's no trade-off. There's like, like, I am like, you know, reasonably educated on distributed systems. Like I don't have a PhD in it. I don't have graduate study in it, but like, as far as like lay people go, you know, I could read the paper and understand its main points. I probably am not the best person to criticize it and point out all of its faults, but from my understanding, like it seemed pretty legit, and I couldn't come up with any like real big flaws or deal breakers. And then, I mean, I just know Goon. He's like one of the smartest people like I've met in my entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I knew that he would not like, and he's also like the most science research driven person I know, of like, we're going to do this the right way. We're not going to make compromises. We're going to figure out what the right thing to do is and do that, even if it's harder. And I'm just like, he would not have dropped everything, gone on hiatus from Cornell, and started this company if this were not legit. Because he has had opportunities before. Oh, absolutely. And especially with selfish mining. He could have just did the system. He could have broken Bitcoin and made, you know, millions, billions of dollars.
He knew about the DAO hack, dude. He was the guy who called the DAO hack out. Like, yeah, absolutely. He has had opportunities for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, to me, that I agree. So I've been for years, I've been saying that I think the next big startup, it's a cliche, but I mean like the next Google, the next Apple, the next Twitter, Facebook will emerge from the blockchain space. I've been saying that for 8 years. And there's been several people I thought could be it. And I really do believe Ava Labs has the potential to be that team. We could blow it. We're humans. Nothing's guaranteed. But and Goon is one of the reasons I say it. To me, it reminds me of like Eric Schmidt at Google. Like at the very, very top of the food chain, there is just like a fourth dimensional apex predator when it comes to computer science. You know what I'm saying? Like Goon is the real deal. He created the very first proof of work system in 2003 called Karma. You know, so anyway, yeah, I feel like it's been 45 minutes, man. I want to be respectful of your time. So if you can give me like 15 more minutes, I could talk to you for
I can keep going. Don't worry. Right. I'm good.
All right, cool. So then, yeah, let's talk about it. So you came to Ava Labs. You became immediately the head of the Dapps team. It was just you in the beginning, right?
Yeah, it was just me.
And was Pangolin your first thing?
Yeah. I started Pangolin actually before I started working at Ava Labs.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Got it.
Part of my interview.
Got it. Okay.
So, but yeah, I started on it. It actually was not Pangolin at the time. And then it morphed into Pangolin later with some outside involvement.
So let me ask you a question then. How do you feel about if you created it before you joined Ava Labs? Presumably you could have just launched it on your own without coming to Ava Labs, right? So
that's what I was going to do if they didn't hire me.
Sure. So how do you feel about that? So the way I look at it, man, and I've said this to you in private text, so I know you know how I feel. To me, social equity is worth more than money. like money's great. We all want money. We all want to have families. We all want to take care of our people. Money is wonderful. But what really matters is social equity, because social equity is what people think about you. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. It's if people trust you. It's if people want to work with you. It's, do you have jobs you could work for the rest of your career? What will people say about you after you leave the world, right? That's social equity. And that's just worth more than money. So I told you this when you created Pangolin, and I meant it then. Like, the social equity that you got from Pangolin is worth a lot. Like, you can't put a dollar on it, dude. You're like literally one of the shining stars of the whole Avalanche ecosystem. And so that's why I wonder, like, what is your, you said you were going to do it anyway, but were you kind of bummed when you came on board and they were like, we're just going to make this a public thing and we're not giving anybody
No,
anything?
no.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, when I say I was going to do it anyway, I mean, so I would say it became kind of part of my interview process. Like, it was not something I was working on in my spare time, but they were just like, you know, as part of the interviewing process has changed a lot at Ava Labs, and
Sure.
I have no idea what your interviews were like, but I had one 25-minute conversation with Kevin,
Right.
and then I worked my butt off for like a week on getting Uniswap ported over to Avalanche, and he was just like, yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't know how long they expected it to take. It was like under a week. I think I like had my interview on like Tuesday, and I think I finished on like Sunday. I didn't get much done in my other job that week.
What was it called before Pangolin?
I was calling it AvaSwap,
Ava Swap. Okay. And then
but the domain was taken.
got it. And so it's a, is it a straight fork of Uniswap, or did we change anything about it in any way?
No, that's really a straight fork. The tokenomics and the incentives and the pooling is different.
Gotcha.
But
And
the
are
actual exchange code is just Uniswap
and
v2.
do you know of the other AMMs that are live on our network? Are they forks of Pangolin, or are they also forks of Uniswap? Or is there a mixture? Do you have any idea?
They're probably forks of Pangolin at this point, because it's easier to fork Pangolin than it is to fork Uniswap for Avalanche, because I already changed the names
Sure.
from
Right.
ETH to AVOX and stuff like that. I know some people have definitely forked Pangolin. Some people might have forked Uniswap. Some people fork SushiSwap. Yeah, the governance stuff is different. Like, we use similar contracts. I did write some of my own contracts for some of the liquidity pool incentivization, but like the incentive schemes are very different in Pangolin than Uniswap. But the exchange code is basically identical.
And what do you like? What are your feelings on Pangolin? Pangolin is like your baby, man. It's going to be around for a long time. So that's one of the things I try and impress on people, because you'll literally hear people still say, is like, is crypto not a fad? Or, you know, is DeFi not a fad? It's like the famous internet article. Is the internet a fad? You know, it's like, just think about how much value is in these tokens on these networks. That stuff's not just going to go away. People don't just allow, you know, people care about their wealth, right? There's people out there still holding on to old currency that you can't even spend. You know what I mean? Like, people don't just let their value go. And when you think about billions, I'm sure now across our entire network of all of these different tokens, this stuff's going to be around for generations, for many, many years. Like, this stuff's going to be around a long time. What do you think about?
It'd be cool if Pangolin outlives me, but no, I mean, I think it's in a really cool place right now.
Yeah.
You know, we did try to like transition it over to the community because we wanted it to be a community run project. So
you got a good team, great team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had a tweet about this a few weeks ago, but like, the way to hire in crypto right now, if you want a job in crypto, is to like hop on a DAO's Discord and like see like what you can do, like see
So
like,
true.
can I contribute somewhere? Because that's how like every member of the Pangolin team ended up joining. Is just, we had so many community volunteers who were like, hey, I want to help out, like, and I'm like, these people who are like offering to help out, they're also like launching some of their own crypto projects on the side. They're like in the space, they know what they're doing. Like, I am like way overtaxed. Like, like for a long time, it was really only me at Ava Labs working on Dapps.
Right, it was for sure. Absolutely.
And I was like way overbooked.
Yeah.
Because my bosses would come to me and be like, we need this now. And I'd be like, no, you don't understand. Pangolin is on fire right now. And they're like, now.
Yeah. And you've worked on some really cool projects. I know not all of them are public, of course. Were you involved in the bridge at all? You must have been at least involved in some way on the bridge.
I've provided advice here and there, but not really. That's that's other people's pride. That's other people deserve the credit for that.
Do you want to give a shout out to any of the team members from the Pangolin thing before we move on to the project you and I worked on? Who's on the team?
Yeah, no,
Like-
I mean, I guess like, so Harry Seldon, Justin Trollope, he's I don't remember what his official title is now, but he is the guru leading Pangolin right now. I think he's doing a fantastic job. Yeah, B Minnow, he's the lead dev right now. He's doing a fantastic job. Leo, or Best Coder NA, is leading all the marketing, and I'm like so impressed with what they've done, because I was like I said, I was so overtaxed working on Pangolin. It was kind of became like I had so much regular tasking that I didn't get to work on Pangolin, and it kind of had to become my like side gig that I was doing like after work to just keep up with my like what needed to be done, and I just couldn't push PRs nearly as fast as I wanted to.
Sure.
And it's so amazing to see that project really blossom to a point where they can actually give it all the support that it needs, because trust me, like everybody else, I saw all the issues, I saw all the feedback, I knew what needed to be fixed. It was just like having the time. And also I really suck at React. So like I am not a front end developer at all.
Right. And now Pangolin's got multiple languages, wallet integrations, partnerships. Like it's an actual blowing up project.
Yeah, no, I mean, that team, they ship. Like, I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest compliments like you can give to a team is like, do you ship or do you not ship? And
Absolutely.
they ship.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then so recently, Connor and I worked on a really cool project. We worked on an NFT marketplace. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. This is something that I'm super excited about. This is going to be the first of many NFT marketplaces, I think, that are going to come to Avalanche. And I think this is a huge new area of crypto that is entirely underexploited. I think the NFT space has been very geared towards independent artists of just like, this is how we're going to fund art. This is how I'm going to sell my house now. This is like they're very like niche use cases for individuals, which is a big important field, but leaves out a huge market, which is licensed NFTs. Yep. Because every company under the sun is going to, every brand under the sun, like what's the most powerful thing in media right now are these brands, these licenses. You know, NBA Top Shot is really the only licensed NFT platform out there. There's a little bit on Wax. Wax had an MLB program, but like there's not much, and there's not much that's super big. So this is a space where, I mean, I imagine probably like every major sport is going to probably want to play. Every, big Hollywood franchise is probably going to get in eventually. Yeah. Like toys, like it's all going to come in. Anything that people are willing to buy, like collectibles of, like, I think the licensed market is going to be huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me give a little backstory. So Connor and I technically are on the same sort of organization at Ava Labs called the Hydra team. We call it the Hydra team because it's like a multi-headed beast, because it was kind of like a catch-all team. So there's some Dapps stuff, there's the stuff I do, developer services. And so we were interfacing quite regularly through stand-ups and stuff. And I said to him, again, I always say a lot of stuff, and I don't know if people take me serious, but I said it like 10 times, like, man, I would love to work on a DApp with you. And the opportunity just did not present itself because it's not in my lane. I do developer services. And so the need came out for a Web 2 developer on this project. And so Connor is just a Web 3 wizard. I mean, he gets all the respect for all the NFT architecture, everything. I haven't touched that code, but I got brought in to do the Web 2 stuff. So I've been doing a lot of sort of the traditional REST API stuff and cloud services. And man, it really has been a great time working with you, man. Now we have clocked some serious hours.
How did you say, are you sure you want to work with me again in the future?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure you want to.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, I literally I have not put in like this kind of effort since 2012, since we took Truly a public on the New York Stock Exchange. So like we've been throwing down some hours, but it's been incredibly rewarding. And most importantly, man, I'm just glad to meet you, because I really do think you're a block star. I think you're a young man and that your best days are ahead of you. And it's going to be really cool to see. Like I always say, once you're lucky, twice you're good. And I think you've already been good. You've already nailed 2 projects. It's going to be interesting to see ultimately where you go.
Oh,
So
thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. And the respect is totally mutual here. I think all the same things about you. I have been so impressed with you since day one. Like seriously, one of the hardest workers I've ever met. And man, this guy ships Avalanche JS updates.
thank you. Yeah, so the NFT marketplace is big, like he said, without even going any farther. There's an absolutely huge potential for, sort of not Web3 centric stuff, a marrying of the Web2 and the Web3 space. So recently, the Bazooka Joe marketplace went live, and that was just a really good melding of Web2 and Web3. As you use this technology, you don't use MetaMask at all. You don't even really use crypto. You're using credit card and sort of fiat payment rails, but under the scenes, there's blockchain technology happening. And that seems like a very natural way forward when we're on-ramping the entire world. It's also giving us a lot of insight into traditional payment rails and how much crypto is just like orders of magnitude better and the problems it solves. Connor can speak to this 1,000 times better than myself because he's fallen down that rabbit hole, but it's just crazy. When you actually start pulling at the threads of the traditional finance rails, it's pretty freaking crazy. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine. That's what's powering our whole financial system. It's absolutely
No, seriously,
insane.
I built the blockchain infrastructure in a week. The actual like contracts and pathways were like very quick. We are building out some infrastructure for kind of doing like managed Web3 work that took a while, but honestly, the hardest part of this entire project has been integrating credit cards and trying to do different kind of payment schemes. So you can like pay with balance versus pay with credit card, or try to do like wire transfers or things like that. And I'll say, so when we say we're, right now these websites are only available to pay with credit cards, like we very much been trying to ship minimum viable product, and we're going to be improving it in the future. There will be crypto rails as well to pay with crypto and all this stuff. We don't believe in just front loading your crypto with credit cards and like never showing it to you. We do believe in like non-custodial solutions, and that's something that we want to provide. But I think this is actually another thing that I'm super hot on, which I think this is like a really great innovation in the space that like we should carry forward, is the hybrid Web2, Web3 interface.
Yeah.
Because I think, how can we get more people in crypto? Like, I think the problem with crypto and onboarding new users is you can't go straight to a Dapps. You have to go to an exchange first. You've got to do the KYC. You've got to wait minutes to days before they verify you. Then you've got to wait for your money to clear, to then withdraw your money to your own wallet, which you have to learn how to use MetaMask. You have to, or ideally you learn how to use a ledger, which you then have to like buy from Amazon. And there's like 10 steps you have to go through to use your first app.
Yep.
And if you haven't lost interest by the end, like you're a devotee, like already, like
Sure.
you've got a very long attention span. Like I want to, like we need to create more pathways for people to just be like, oh my God, this NFT is so awesome. I've never bought an NFT before. I want to buy it. And 10 seconds later, they have it. Like that's what you need to get new users. Like, you need people to be like, this is something I want to try. And then just like be like a couple clicks away from doing it.
Yep.
And I think that's an area where, working on these on-ramps is just something that we're going to have to do for a while. Like we won't have to do it forever. Like I think mobile is a really great comparison here of like, when phone apps were new and like mobile as a platform was new, you had to think about like onboarding people to the mobile experience and like learning how to use their phones, because they, there was an onboarding process that you actually had to worry about as a developer. Whereas now mobile is so ubiquitous, like you don't worry, like, does this person like know how to use iPhone apps? Are they familiar with these paradigms? Because we just assume like everybody is, because it's so ubiquitous. And I think crypto will reach a point, we'll reach that point eventually when everybody has a wallet.
Sure.
I think also like the ability to have like crypto bank accounts, I think will be important in the future too, that like allow you to move, like more custodial solutions, I think are also just important for the future. Just
Sure.
Because most people.
Yeah, and as more people are digitally native, right? Like my son, who's totally digitally native and has been into cryptos for as long as he's known, right? Like it's going to be incredibly natural to them. So it also just be of people just filtering out of the systems and more crypto natives coming in. It makes me think of a couple of things came to mind. You said crypto bank accounts. I wanted to give a shout out to Caitlin Long and the crew from Wyoming. The work that's going on in Wyoming is absolutely critical to that. And then also on the flip side, back to the NFT marketplace, before we wrap it up, I want to give a shout out to like the biz dev team and the marketing team at Ava Labs. I really think that Ava Labs is special in the fact that we have this amazing technology that we're getting to work with, but it's really not enough. So like the stuff we're talking about right now, being able to on-ramp these big brands into this stuff, that's not something the engineers do. That's something that biz dev people do. And I just have a ton of respect for these people and the work that they put in and the deals they pull off. Massive respect there.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I think that's a cool thing about crypto is it's a space for everyone, because like when you're trying to onboard users, sometimes you need suits, sometimes you need silicon casual people like you and myself.
Right. So then what do you think are the biggest wins we've had at Ava Labs so far? Or Avalanche? We have to be Ava Labs.
Yeah.
In Avalanche, what are some of the biggest wins we've had?
I think honestly, the launch of Pangolin, I think, was a really big win for us, because I would say, not to brag, but I mean, just that was like the first moment where Avalanche became something real.
It was a milestone. I said at the time, it was a huge milestone. We'll look back in 10 years and Pangolin will be a milestone. It was the first DApp that went live that showed we have sub-second, immutable, irreversible finality with EVM Dapps, boom. And there it is.
Yeah, I think, if you look at the traffic on Avalanche, like the first few months after mainnet, it's like nothing, boom. And that's like right when Pangolin launched. So I think that was a huge milestone, just like actually having a real DApp on the system and, bringing in real users, real traffic. If you look at the liquidity curve on Pangolin, it's like exponential growth those first few days. And like we hit hundreds of millions of dollars, like almost right away. And it was super flattering and impressive. And I think just all the user feedback that we got of the on-ramping sucks, but like once you get in, this is awesome.
Right. Yeah. And then how about like, what do you think are some of any other upsides? Anything else come to mind?
Yeah. There's definitely some other stuff that I want to shout out. I think I know I have a lot of Pangolin ones. Pangolin transitioning over to the community team. I think that is a huge milestone of actually having a DAO work in practice.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How is the governance? What's the governance look like now on Pangolin? And it's live, right?
Oh yeah, it's been live for a long time. So we had some community members who I was reaching out to, and I was like, hey, you should run for office or whatever to like run Pangolin. And so I was chatting with a group of guys and had them, we had a few people who were like the most committed members of the community team who were interested in stepping up to the task. And so they put together a proposal to take money from the community treasury to pay salaries for themselves and have a multi-sig treasury that could be used to fund a DAO company, basically. And they were successful. They were able to get the million PNG required to do that. And they
cool, man.
came out with a whole plan of like, we're going to be paid in PNG. This is how much we're going to make. We're going to do all this stuff. These are our immediate like roadmap plans. They're very transparent, and they've taken it over, and they're like basically bootstrapped a startup on top of a multi-million-dollar DEX, which is like
it's amazing.
Crazy, multi-$100-million DEX.
And they're not all engineers. Is that correct?
No, they're not.
Right. So I just wanted to highlight that, just so I could say, like, to highlight what he said earlier. If you want to get involved in a crypto project, go to like a DAO, especially go to their Discord, go to their GitHub, find some way that you can plug in and start adding value. The opportunity is so wide open, and it's not just engineers, it's anybody, project managers, business people, marketing people. Like every single team out there in the crypto world right now is just like starving for competent, quality, hardworking, trustworthy people. And there's just so much opportunity. Yeah.
If you just want to do some work on the side, they have like tons of bounty programs for things that are not even all engineering related. Sometimes it's like, we want a translation into the Turkish of our docs. So like, hey, I speak Turkish or whatever. I'll just go translate them. And then like, oh, bam, you get a couple hundred PNG or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they definitely outsource a lot of tasks like that. And it really is, it spans the full gamut. Everyone on the team was hired that way, not just engineers, also marketing, also community members, a lot of stuff like that. So whatever your specialty is, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, honestly, they probably need both of those.
And it's as straightforward with regards to governance. It's just a proposal vote mechanism. Is that it?
Yeah, so they've been switching it up a little bit. So they have a multi-sig on the treasury. They have on-chain governance. They also have off-chain governance via snapshot that the multi-sig holders like swear to abide by.
Sure.
And they have some different processes. So some of the stuff that was governed by the on-chain governance, they've also kind of like moved to a procedural stuff because they were just having to do too many proposals.
Sure.
And so for like, Pangolin has the ability to incentivize certain pairs. And so they've kind of taken an approach similar to some other dexes where instead of just incentivizing a few big pairs, they're going to incentivize a lot of pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so because they were incentivizing so many pairs, they could only do like 10 at a time or whatever. And you don't necessarily do that. And like new tokens are coming online every week. So they switched to like, if you meet these requirements, if you have like 5,000 transactions, if you have, you know, blah, 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 we'll just automatically add you as a pair. Got
it. And then how about other than Pangolin? What are some other projects that jump out in your mind?
I'm really excited for Benki Finance. That hasn't launched yet, but that's going to be a lending platform. That's been one of the big building blocks. Is
that flash loans or is that what?
It does have flash loans. I believe it will have flash loans. So that's a really big one that's coming very soon. We just like today and finished our Chainlink implementation. So Chainlink is now live on Avalanche, and that was the big blocker on lending. You need price feeds to do lending platforms.
And explain it to me again, like I'm 5, because you've done it before and you did a great job. Flash loans, like it's what is the heart and soul of flash loans?
Flash loans are what's known as uncollateralized loans. So basically, you can borrow unlimited money, as up to as much as money is in the lending platform's treasury, without putting anything down as collateral. The reason you can do this, and this is something you can't do in the real world, this is just a crypto thing. The reason you can do this is because the loan is only valid if it is paid back within 1 Ethereum block or within the same transaction. Okay. So that means you can actually borrow this money basically risk-free. So you have to borrow it and pay it back in the same transaction because Ethereum transactions or EVM transactions follow a commit revert pattern. Okay. So you have to, if you can borrow the money, do your arbitrage opportunity or whatever you want to do with it, and then pay the money back, your transaction succeeds. But if you made a mistake and you actually can't pay it back, you like lost money, the transaction will revert. And the only thing you will have paid is the lost gas for the transaction fee.
Got it. And then so this is like me walking into the bank and saying, I want to borrow all the money in the bank with no collateral, basically.
Yeah, I can borrow $1 billion for 1 second.
That's pretty radical.
And so what's cool about this is it really lowers the barrier to entry for people who want to take advantage of things like arbitrage opportunities or whatever that would previously only be available to people with large amounts of money.
Sure.
Because let's say you notice an opportunity on Pangolin where the price is like distorted and you can like earn money by buying up a lot of one token and then shifting the price back to the equilibrium point. Mm-hmm. It might take a few $1 million to buy enough to take full advantage of it. And I don't know about you. I don't have a few $1 million sitting mm-hmm. around to like just slosh around in DeFi protocols.
Right.
Especially if you get up into like the tens of millions, like, cause like Uniswap V3, for instance, like if you want to take advantage of the arbitrage, you actually need like tens of millions sometimes because it's very capital efficient. Mm-hmm. So you need a flash, like if you're just a lay person, you can get a flash loan and still take advantage of this opportunity that previously would only have been locked off to institutional investors. So this is, flash loans are very powerful. They can actually do a lot of bad things because if you can, sometimes they're helpful for letting people break protocols because you can do some price manipulation and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I do really like them because I think they democratize a whole new part of the ecosystem that mm-hmm. lets people who are clever, reap the benefits of their work rather than necessarily the people who are like already rich.
Sure. I mean, it's the great promise of DeFi, right? So in the same way that the web democratized information and made the totality of all human knowledge ubiquitous at a button click, DeFi really does democratize asset or wealth. And so you can imagine, like he just said, something that was previously limited to an institutional investor, now a 13-year-old young lady in India can do. Like, it's just an absolute leveler of the playing field, and it lowers the barrier to entry. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So when does that go live?
So Chainlink went live today. That was the big blocker. So
Yeah,
they're probably going
Chainlink
to test with
also
Chainlink.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not hooked into the Benki team. I don't really know, but just I imagine pretty soon.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that's pretty exciting. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say just one with a very amorphous milestone. I would say when I started working on the Tops project a few months ago, I knew almost every Dapp on Avalanche. Like, I was like very in tune with the ecosystem,
Sure.
and I could tell you, like, there is PandaSwap, there is Pangolin, there is Zero, there is, like, I could like list off like every Dapp that was on the platform. Then there's like a few coming. There's like Sherpa Cash. There's all these. Now I have no clue. Like, in just the last like 2 months, like just the number of projects that have actually launched has gone just like through the roof, and I'm out of touch now. I'm like so far behind the curve of just like what's running on Avalanche now.
And we're about to have dynamic fees, right? So things are even about to change in like a whole other way. Yeah, that's amazing. So I think, I've heard, let's say, just throw a number out there. Let's say there's 250 apps live on the mainnet right now. I don't know, give or take 50. Probably at least that many in the progress of being made. Just a guesstimate, 12 months from now, how many Dapps will be live on Avalanche?
I think the number I heard tossed around recently was 70.
I heard 70 as well, but then I saw a chart where they said 225. So let's go with 100 then. Let's say there's 100. That's still an amazing number. What do you think in a year? How many Dapps are on Avalanche? There's 100 now. Just a guess. 1,000 or more?
Yeah, I would say a 10x. I think we can 10x in a year.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's on the lower bound. My opinion is that there could be thousands, but every time I say that, people roll their eyes. But I say it 1,000 times a day, so I'm going to say it again now because I'm a broken record. The pace of change is accelerating so radically that we're going to experience 100 years worth of progress in 10 years. So to say that we could have, 1,500 Dapps on live next year, sure, man. Especially if inflation keeps going the way it is all around the world and people keep getting driven. Yeah.
The truth is, there's a lot of Dapps that are derivative.
Sure,
which helps people build fast.
Yeah.
So like,
but I don't see any shame to that game. I don't see any shame to that game.
No shame to this game. In fact, it actually helps us in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like, it's the kind of thing of like, you don't have to build everything from scratch. As I guess what I was going to say is that, like, Pangolin was the first DEX to launch an Avalanche. Pangolin was not an original idea. Pangolin was Uniswap. Like, I take no credit for that. But then that's the same thing spawned 10 other DEXs.
Sure.
There's a lot of apps on Ethereum that have not been cloned over to Avalanche yet. And there is ample opportunity for somebody who just wants to go over fork Ethereum projects and bring them over to Avalanche. There's also people building on Binance. There's also people building on, other chains that are using the EVM that we can, like, people can take those projects and bring them here. And then people can then also take them here, tweak them slightly, and then make a second copy. That happens a lot, and that really increases the rate of inflation. And that's actually like a good thing. I think, like, I don't believe that. I think there is definitely some cash grab, and I'm not a super fan of that. But I think there's also people who make a lot of substantive changes that are small. And like, this is like SushiSwap and Uniswap, for example. Uniswap, I think they really don't like SushiSwap because they kind of like stole their DEX contract. I mean, they forked their open source contracts, but then Uniswap, SushiSwap actually did have a really great innovation with its yield farming and the way that it did its tokenomics. That honestly, like, Uni's tokenomics are like not great. They're like very centralized. They also have like given out like most of their supply, and so they don't like they don't have the ability to just keep giving out lots of tokens to their.
They don't have a lot of gunpowder.
Yeah. So most of them are like accounted for.
Got it.
Whereas like SushiSwap has no minting limit. They just like inflate infinitely. But because of that, they're able to give out rewards for a lot of things, and they're able to fine tune how rewards are distributed. And they actually do a really great job of like letting you use your rewards to earn other rewards by like staking your reward tokens. And there's just like everything about that platform is a rewards mechanism. It has one attached to it. And I think that is a huge innovation in the space. So even though it's using the same like automated market maker, constant multiplier market maker kind of thing, it's still like really pushing the ecosystem forward, and like it totally like one of the key, building blocks in yield farming, and super interesting. So like, I mean, there's no shame in forking a project and trying to improve it, even if the improvement is tangential. Like, I mean, I would say like Pangolin does do things differently than Uniswap, differently than SushiSwap, different than PancakeSwap. And especially now with the team going forward.
Yeah, plus we are about to have subnets, and that's going to introduce a whole new paradigm, right? So it's like a new EVM type thing could launch, and all of a sudden we could just see a whole new explosion of non-DeFi dApps.
Like also we're gonna get like the Bitcoin's coming over eventually. Like I know we've publicly talked about. We were working with some external people, I believe, to bring the Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash VMs over. So any app that's been written for Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, their scripting languages, those are now can be ported over to Avalanche.
Yeah, I was the one. I'm the one running that project for what it's worth, and it's just on hold until the subnets are permissionless. Right now, subnets are permissioned, but now that we have VMs, we are literally. I just had a meeting with our VP of engineering about it last week. We're just waiting on permissionless subnets, and then we're going to have a Bitcoin and a Bitcoin Cash virtual machine and a subnet. So there will be like the Ethereum subnet, which is like an Ethereum spoon, where you just fork Ethereum into a subnet and drop the state. We're going to do the same thing with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. We're calling them initial subnet offerings. So that's something we have discussed publicly and is definitely in the works as well.
Yeah, and I think the ability, I think it'll be really interesting to see what the next chain we bring over is, because there's a bunch of other chains that have built their own like proprietary, or not necessarily proprietary, but they've built their own virtual machine implementation for smart contracts. They're not using the EVM, they're not using Bitcoin, like Cardano or whatever.
I know Tyler T-Crypt, who's an absolutely wizard from our team as well, talks a lot about Mina and Cairo, which are like these succinctly verifiable, recursively snarked VMs. That's something. There could also be WASM. Like there's a lot of different things that could be coming into the ecosystem that are going to be catalysts in addition to the EVM. So that's why I say 1,000 dApps next year. I think that's completely reasonable just on the EVM. When you start sprinkling in other VMs, thousands is what I've been saying. And everybody was always like, yeah, right. And I'm like, let's talk in a year, man. Things are going so fast.
I know. I think working on the EVM is the short game right now, and subnets are the long game.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. What do you think I have a couple more questions, and now we're kind of a little bit more vague. So what are some of our big mistakes? What are some of the things we've not mistakes, but we just talked about the upsides. What are some of the downsides so far of the journey?
Personally, or for Ava Labs?
Whatever, but yeah, whatever comes to your mind, really. So whatever you thought, whatever you want to share.
I think what won't get me fired?
I think you would have to do something really stupid to get fired, man. I think you're a pretty valuable asset.
I think one of the places that we struggled was I think we had too much emphasis on the X-chain at first.
Yep. With all the exchanges, we did exchange integrations primarily with X-chain, and that was like you have to cross-chain swap to get. Yeah, that was awkward.
And I totally understand why. I mean, Avalanche consensus works best for DAG-based blockchains.
And we issued our token on the X-chain, right? So it only makes sense that's where it was, right?
And I think what we didn't anticipate as a company was just the explosion in like DeFi and the explosion of apps, and that people weren't looking for a payment. People in 2020, last year, 2021, are not looking for payments.
I agree.
Like they're looking for dApps. They're looking for smart contracts. They're looking for yields.
Absolutely.
Like that's where the money is right now. And I think we were slow to recognize that. And we have since pivoted. Like now, like C-Chain is our like focus 1A, I think,
absolutely,
on the platform side of trying to trying to improve going forward, because we do have to make some changes, because Avalanche consensus, like we've been shipping minimum viable products. Like nothing I think that we have shipped has been super polished just as a company. Like, I mean, it's like very, very high quality software, but you know, we have the minimum amount of features we need to go to market, and we like polish things later. And so I think the C chain just has needed like more polish, and so there's still like some work to be done to make sure that it is like as performant and as secure and as scalable as possible. And I think, yeah, we've done a really good job of like prioritizing that. But you know, we still have some room to go before we're truly the best in the world by an order of magnitude or two. But we're gonna get there. Like we have the plans to get there. And I think so. I think that was probably like the biggest mistake that we just kind of made. But I think we're moving in a good direction now. But like I said, I think the C chain is the short game, subnets are the long game, and we're definitely still working on the long game right now.
I agree. Okay.
I mean, I think just some of the other things that we've struggled with are some of the communications around and some of the marketing, I think, has been harder on people. I think that's one community complaint that I think is they're very reasonable, is that we haven't done as much advertising to like push Avalanche and some of these other things. But I think it's a good move, but I understand some of the frustration there. Right. Because it sucks when you feel like you have the best technology in the world, but nobody knows about you. Sure. And that people are still talking about people who haven't delivered anything, but they don't know who we are. Right. And so I think that's one thing that I think is going to be fixed in the future, is going to be like making sure that everybody in the world knows Avalanche, and that we're a very clear marketing team, very transparent, and not an anonymous entity that's like very secretive or anything like that.
Sure. And I know the team has been growing in leaps and bounds with amazing people to solve that exact problem. So yeah, I'm sure of that. Okay, so zooming out a little bit, what do you think are, same sort of tone of question, first part, what do you think is like the best part about crypto, idealism, you know, just, and then what do you think is like the downside?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best part about crypto is that we kind of get to start over. There's no legacy software. This is like the thing of like, you go into a company and you want to make some great software to work with this company or whatever, but it turns out that their whole backend is built in COBOL. And like, if you want to interface with them, you've got to like deal with all this. But now is this chance to like reset, start over. Like, this is the same thing, not just with software, with like any system of like, we want to make a new law. Well, if we want to pass a new law, we have to take into consideration all the laws that have come before, all the processes for making a law that have come before. There's all these systemic forces that are in place to push things into a box. Right. And crypto's like a place to build outside that box, where these systems aren't in place. Like, nobody who's like actually like an institutional force is in crypto right now. Like, there's nobody who's saying like, this is the way it has to be built. It has to integrate with this old thing. Like, the whole ethos of crypto is just, we're throwing everything out. We're starting new. Like, we can actually build these new systems from scratch. We can take everything we've learned from hundreds of years of US history and thousands of years of human history to make more fair systems for everyone. Because I think the best part about crypto, I don't think it's the great equalizer. I think this is something that some people get caught up with. I don't think crypto is necessarily going to be this equity driven force that's necessarily going to, or like a redistributive force. I mean, I think some people are going to get rich that were not rich before. I think some people who are already rich are going to get way richer. I don't think it's necessarily going to be super redistributive. I think that's, but what I do think is that it's going to make the systems more fair for everyone, because I think there's so many institutional problems with the old financial system, of things that are designed to help you that are actually designed to keep you poor. Sure. Especially like, there's so much like, when people talk about like crypto has some problems, but I think we need to think about it more like we think about self-driving cars. In that like everyone like likes to hyper analyze the one time a self-driving car gets into an accident, and they don't really think about like all of the accidents that didn't happen because the self-driving car, even though it has like less accidents overall, just the one accident is like the super blown up one. I think crypto is kind of the same way, of like, you're like, well, somebody committed a crime with Bitcoin once,
Sure.
and just like, yes, like that happened, but people commit crimes with cash all the time. And like the majority of dollar bills are like in denominations of like $100 or greater, I think, like
Sure.
because of like the cartels and like how they pay their stuff, because there's so much money wrapped up in it, like the majority of cash. And like I've never dealt in bills that large. But I just think there's like so much like discrimination in the financial system, that it's like targeted to like hurt minorities. There's so much stuff that's trying to protect Wall Street and institutional investors. They just get bailed out whenever they make a mistake, and then everybody else pays the price.
Sure.
And I think that while crypto won't level the playing field for everyone economically, I think it's going to make it fair and more transparent in a way that, I think most people would recognize that, not everybody's going to have the same outcome, but I think people would like to play by the same rules.
Sure.
And I think that is an opportunity that is, really powerful.
Absolutely.
The biggest risk, I think, is that we create an environment that is totally allows people to escape in a negative way.
Like
I think
escape
that,
taxes or fund terrorism? What do you, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no, I think that, we do have some power as a society to do things that are like redistributive, like, we could tax the rich or things like that if we wanted to. And, because of like wealth distribution, kind of like if you wanted to do something like that, we actually have some power, like the government, we the people as like the government or whatever have the power to, enforce taxes and like have people, compel people to do things without violence.
Right.
And I think the one biggest risk of crypto would be that we create a way for people to totally escape any kind of like financial oversight. Sure. And, we already have like billionaires who don't pay any taxes, who, do we just get into a system where like all of their money is untouchable and, they don't really partake in society anymore and don't do the things they do that help out the rest of us downstream. Sure. I think that's probably the biggest risk, is that we kind of just create the ability to totally escape, which I don't think is super desirable. I think there needs to be a balance. I think people need to, as much as I hate paying taxes, I think taxes are a useful concept, and I wish they were more efficient. And
Tyler recently said, I'd like, he's tweeted or something, paying taxes in a ZK snark and distributing with a DAO. That's the future I want to see.
I mean, it's hard also, because I think, it's a tough problem. You can't really simplify it, because like everybody wants to pay for the sexy stuff. Nobody wants to pay for the boring stuff. Sure. And of course, you gotta do the boring stuff too, unfortunately. Absolutely. But I think you just have to strike a balance between giving people like total financial freedom to do whatever they want, but also, making sure that everybody does contribute to society in a way that is helpful and kind of like hopefully most optimal.
Sure. Okay. All right, man. Well, I have one last sort of topic and we can wrap it up. I think we can, I want to go way back to the beginning. I want to go to where it all started. I want to know sort of, what are your thoughts on Satoshi? Like, was it one person? Was it a group? What motivated Satoshi? Is Satoshi still alive? Just what are your thoughts on Satoshi? Just brain dump on Satoshi.
I think it was probably a person. Like, I don't buy into like it was the Chinese government kind of like
Mhm.
conspiracy theory. I'm not super schooled on this. I don't know. I know there's like a lot of people who have like the actual history of like, oh, he was on this chat room at this time or whatever, and like he tended to write during these time zones and whatnot. So I've never been super interested in the debate. I think it was probably one person. I think they're probably dead, if I'm
You
being
think so?
honest.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I suspect it was either. I think it was probably, my intuition was that it was actually a group. The reason I say that is because, yeah, there were bugs in Bitcoin. Like there was a minting bug in Bitcoin. It wasn't bulletproof, but man, it was really high quality to be like an iteration 1 or 1.1 or something of a technology stack. And there's so many threads, right? It's like economics and computer science and networking and security. And there's just so many threads that, yeah, there could have been one person who knew all those things. It's possible. There are giants out there. But usually when something like that is released that's so bulletproof, I mean, not perfect, of course, but it's usually like peer reviewed. And the fact that nobody has ever came forward to me suggests there's like some ironclad NDAs in place that are preventing people from being able to ultimately come out. What I think though, is I suspect that if you could pinpoint it on one person, it's Hal Finney, right? Hal Finney was employee number 2 at PGP. He ran Bitcoin, running Bitcoin, the very first dude who ever tweeted about it. He got the first transaction from Satoshi. His neighbor was Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto, that guy that Newsweek pointed, like where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And it seems to me like if I had to say anybody, Hal Finney is probably a good guess. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like hard to believe that they wouldn't touch the fortune.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I think that they're dead, or just that like they would have to like care about money so little.
Or unless they went on to something else. So that'd be another reason, right? That they've just created some other coin. I'm just freestyling now.
True. Yeah.
And it's like,
they founded Stripe or something like that. I'm like,
yeah, right. And they're like, I don't want to touch it because I'll destroy Bitcoin or whatever. And it's not worth it. I'm already worth $1 billion. So that'd be another one, is if they're just so good that they just moved on. But yeah, I agree with you. It's suspicious that nothing has ever been touched. That's like some discipline that is not human.
I mean, they clearly, I don't think they'll ever come forward at this point.
Right.
Because I mean, if anyone wanted to, like if the real Satoshi wanted to come forward, they could prove it super easily.
Absolutely.
So anybody that claims they are without doing that is full of shit.
Yeah. I just was saying that the other day. With extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence, and nobody's met the evidence, so the claims are.
Well, the extraordinary evidence is like, it's easy. It's not like hard.
Right.
Like,
true. But nobody's done it, right?
Yeah.
At least not in public.
Turns out he just lost his private key. That was he threw away the computer.
He's trying to.
They didn't have ledgers back then.
He's trying to go get the city dump to let him dig it up with AI right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. Well, it was really nice talking to you, dude. That was a great convo. Thank you for giving me insight into your journey and your vision. And absolutely, we're going to be doing this on the regular, and I'm going to try and bring in so many different people. So I extend the invitation. If you want to do it on the regular, man, let me know. I'll definitely have you back anytime.
Yeah, no, this was super fun. I love doing this kind of thing. And you are the best host in the business here.
Thank you. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for staying up late. Go enjoy your time, and thank you.
All right, man. Take care. See you tomorrow.
All right, man. Cheers.
Bye.